Today, we want to start the workshop session with a question that we feel very proud and honored to have three able individuals sit here and discuss with us the question of thoughts about producing, judging, and distributing Fulldome shows under the title of The Business of Quality. Fulldome is a very young medium. These are very young people, but they have so much experience that they qualify as our wisdom elders. And so this council we are very happy to have here to open the discussion on something that I believe many of you are interested in hearing people talk about. I must say we as festival organizers are particularly interested in the discussion of more and more entries come to us. The time that the jury has to make sense of what they see and make wise decisions about who will win the award is very, very complex. So we need to find some criteria by which to find out, well, what do we want to communicate to the Fulldome community by saying this particular show deserves an award. Two of these people here have been sitting in on the panel of jurors a couple of days ago to look at the entries of this year, and I can promise you, none of them will spill any beans, none of them will tell you who is winning any of the awards. Decisions have been made, but no, don't tell what decisions you made, but tell us about the process, the difficulties, the inspirations, what we can learn from that session, and what we can learn about the business of quality, judging, and looking at quality. So, I asked these three people to just briefly introduce who they are. I can tell you, this is, everybody knows Eduard Thomas, everybody knows Carolyn Petersen, everybody knows Neafus. But I want them to say, okay, hello, I'm Ben, and then I'll ask them to make a little opening statement, and then you'll be witnessing a world first. This will be the first Fulldomia Trialogue. We are all members, citizens, inhabitants of the Fulldomia universe, and a trialogue is more than a dialogue, and less than a talk show. It's three people sharing views, sharing their opinions, discussing what's important. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome our three panelists, and then we go as discussed. Good morning.
There we are. And good morning to all of you. Big thank you to Mickey and Durga and others working so hard to invite us to this wonderful festival. This is my fourth visit, I think, again, something like that. Very, very fun. Again, I'm Dan Neafus. I manage the Gates Planetarium in Denver, Colorado. My notes this morning, I'm reminded that we were one of the first Fulldome. We were the first 4K dome environment. We actually ran off an SDI supercomputer. And over the years, I have seen many, many Fulldome presentations, some good and some bad. I will add that I've been involved in many, many productions, and some good and some bad, and have developed some strong opinions about Fulldome and where I would like to influence where we're headed. So with that, I'll pass the microphone to Carolyn, let her do her introduction, and we'll go back through.
Thank you. So I'm Carolyn Collins Petersen, and I am currently this year CEO of Loch Ness Productions, which means that I'm in charge for this year. My husband and I started the company about 35 years ago, back when the only film that you saw in a dome was a piece of slide film, and things went and progressed, and so we've ridden along the Fulldome wave. So we've produced about 35 films. We're now also distributing films, and the first year that I came to Jena, Mickey very graciously asked us to help judge the professional entries, which was a very educational aspect for me, which I'll get into a little bit more. I also do a lot of science writing. That's actually my background, is astronomy and science writing, so that's what I bring to the Fulldome world. I've also been judging for the Jackson Hole Wildlife Film Festival the last year, which is a big festival in the United States. They get 600 entries, and we have to judge those. So it's been very experimental for me, but I've also learned a lot that I can apply to the Fulldome Festival as well. So I'll be expanding on that a bit more.
My name is Eduard Thomas. I'm head of the Mediendom at Kiel University of Applied Sciences, and I'm working in the Planetarium since 30 years, I think. So, first of all, I was a teacher, and I wanted to use a planetarium to teach people, if possible, in a very amazing way. We have a Fulldome system since 2003, one of the first ones in Germany. We have the students of multimedia production at our university, and so we tried to find ways bringing together education and the way students do creative thinking. And in these both parts, we try to produce, we have to distribute, and we work in very, very different topics. We try to bring biology to the planetarium, we try to bring art to the planetarium, but we try to keep education in the planetarium.
So this is where it gets interesting, is how we pass back and forth. Maybe we tap a mic or interrupt, or we'll go. We do intend for this to be conversational too. I'm not quite sure how we encourage audience interaction, but if you make a point that you would like to have us clarify, or perhaps you don't understand, please speak up, because this is not just a lecture. This is meant to be a bit of a conversation. We'll start off with the refined statement, perhaps, on what I'm looking for in Fulldome. I write at length about this in a paper I released a while ago called The Language of Immersive Cinema, and tried to detail what these evolving ideas are about. And it really boils down to a statement here I'll just go ahead and read. That I'm looking for something that's well crafted, that is a story made for the Fulldome, and that takes me personally on a magical journey. Each of those points we can expand on greatly, but the craft has to do with the fidelity, the delivery, the quality, the resolution, the editing, the overall fit, just the craft involved in putting any good film together. The story will go into at length about the importance of there being a story. Very often we see content where I'm not sure there is a story, and that's kind of troublesome to me. And the story was thought about originally and delivered for the dome itself. There's a lot of content that we're seeing more recently that was evolved for television or the medium that folks are trying to evolve into flat giant screen and to the dome with really mixed effect. And personally, I'm looking for things where the visionary was thinking full dome immersion right from the get-go. The idea of taking me personally on a journey. This is again something that I've been researching a great deal about. The effect in the dome is a very personal experience, and when you realize that from the beginning, that all of the craft, the editing, and the style have to do with where the producer is taking the individual or not. Sometimes it's overlooked. And the element of magic there is nice if there's a bit of wonderment to the whole thing, some surprise, some elegance, some wanting to look around the next corner and to go somewhere. And certainly the surprise magic that we experience now and then of what this dome space can do to you, we yearn for the surprises after a decade. You know, we've seen many things, but every now and then something comes up that's completely different. Those are the ones I key in on.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. When I was making my notes about this, I went back and looked at a blog entry that I did about a month and a half ago, and I forget the title now, but it was Planetariums Are Changing in the 21st Century, we need to change with them. And in the United States and perhaps elsewhere, there's some discussion about, do planetariums stay in the old mold or do they move into the 21st century? That's sort of a loaded question, but my statement was, basically the digital age is changing planetarium. The old planetarium we love, we're sitting in the oldest one. We're sitting here looking at what is the, sort of the current technology that was brought to us by Bauersfeld and his people, almost 100 years ago. And the room is still magic. The room still can take you places that you cannot go anywhere else. And so what we as Fulldome filmmakers need to remember is that we are part of that storytelling. Our story, our shows have to tell a story, and as you say, if it doesn't, you wonder about that. I wear 3 or 4 hats when I come to Jena. I'm a producer, I distribute shows, I'm a writer, I'm an audience member. I'm relatives of audience members, and so all of those people are with me when I create a show, or when I seek to distribute a show. I distribute some of Eduard's shows, I distribute shows for various people. And if I sit in the audience and see a show, and it wows me, then I know it's going to wow the audiences that I'm selling to. And wow is a very hard term for me to define. What wows me may not wow you. But for example, last year, how many were here last year? I don't know, any of you? Do you remember seeing Dream to Fly? That was probably one of the most beautiful Fulldome videos I've ever seen. And I sat here and I was completely entranced by that show. I did not have to ask myself how did they do that, because those scenes did not show. I didn't have to ask myself any questions about it. I just was simply able to enjoy it. And to me, that's part of the film storytelling tradition, that we have to be able to tell a story. And whether it's in the dome, whether you're doing it in flat screen, you're in an IMAX theater, you're on television cartoons, you're telling a story. One thing that I do ask myself when I come to festivals like this is, if I'm sitting here in the dome and I'm watching a show, and I ask myself, why is this in the dome? Then that show has failed as Fulldome. It may be beautiful in flat screen, but it does not work in Fulldome. So if you find yourself sitting here, and I don't think you will, but if you do, and you see a show and you ask yourself, why is this in the dome, then that is a trigger in your mind that perhaps this show needs some more work.
Let me add to that, is that I have a couple phrases related to it, is, must the show be done in a dome? That's one of the things when you look at the story. You say this underwater scene or this universe light, there's no other way to do it unless you're in the dome. And the second big question is, can it be done in the dome? A little bit like our experiment last night with the live theater. You may have an idea that's so out there that it can't really be delivered. A good example would be like a romantic comedy with 2 interacting characters where you do lots of kissing and close-ups. Really, really tough to do in the dome with the current tech. So there's that, can it happen and should it happen?
Actually, there was a similar problem with IMAX a long time ago. People wanted to start doing live action comedy and films, and it turns out when you put a camera in front of someone's face for IMAX, you're basically looking up their nose on a 10-story screen. It's huge. So it turns out character-based does not, now it does. Now they've learned techniques, but in the beginning it was not.
It takes a lot of care to make it work.
It really does.
Yes. Can you really do
it?
I like to agree with all you said. When I read what we shall talk about today, I read we shall share thoughts about producing, judging, and distributing Fulldome shows. And I have the view from coming from a small town in the northern part of Germany. I have a lot of experience in planetariums, 30 years I told you about. And if I look to these 3 words, producing, judging, distributing, my first thought was, each of these 3 topics is difficult. Producing. The most difficult part in producing, for me as a planetarium director, is how to achieve the budget. If I have thoughts to get the money, most of all, it's not reachable. So I have to try to find ways to make an idea possible. Of course, I like to do everything to thought. It shall be amazing, it shall be emotional, it shall fit to the dome. But I need to find the money to produce it. And this is quite difficult. Perhaps I can distribute, get money for the next production. This is difficult as well. Planetarium directors are very special persons. They are competent, of course. Every director is something like a king in his planetarium. and he has his own way of thinking what is the best for his house. And of course, there are local things. For example, we have 100-kilometer distance to Hamburg, but the audience in Hamburg is quite different to the audience in Kiel. I am in a part in the city where normally there are no guests who come in spontaneously. In Hamburg, they are sitting in a park. There are people who walk along and they say there's a planetarium. Oh, what's a planetarium? Let's go inside. So the local aspects means that every planetarium director has to think about what will fit to my planetarium. You may know the show Chaos and Order, a mathematical symphony. It's a typical thing which fits best to my house, for I have a computer collection, computer museum, next to my planetarium. It's wonderful. We will show this show and then the people can go to the computer museum. It will not work in Hamburg. So the decision for a planetarium director, if he wants to play a show, is very difficult. It is difficult for him to decide, does it fit? And it's more difficult for me to think about, will I find 2 or 5 or 10 or hundreds of planetariums who will take the show I want to produce? Producing, distributing, judging. Judging is as difficult as well. I don't think that we have in the planetarium community a way of common sense about what is educational worth. We discuss it a little bit. Often we don't discuss it openly. But if you have seen a show and a conference, you sit together, 2 persons, 3 persons at a table, having your dinner, and maybe you can say, well, this part of the show fits to what I would like to do, and this doesn't. And I think this is a problem, a real problem. There are some planetariums, they have teachers. There are some planetariums, they have astrophysics or astronomers. There are some planetariums now, they have multimedia productions. But what we need is this emotional point you mentioned. It's going inside and being amazed. Going outside, telling your neighbors, your friends, you have to go to the planetarium. And it's very difficult to find a common sense what is to produce that we get these shows. I've seen a lot of planetarium shows in the last 30 years. Few of them were wonderful.
We'll let that sink in for a moment. If people aren't leaving happy and enthusiastic, then maybe we have a big problem there. That's it. The quote that I'll pull from Shane Younglove's book, Expanded Cinema. Some of you who have studied or looked into multimedia are familiar with that publication. If not, it is worth picking up just to look at Expanded Cinema. Some very forward-looking ideas in that. And one of them was a discussion about the commercial language of the cinema in general. And there's a description that the commercial language is an exploitation of tradition and dramatic manipulation comfortable to the viewer, that's logical, predictable, and the techniques and events are gratifying. What that's referring to is the Hollywood model of give them what they came for. You know, you give them happy, you give them sad, you wrap it up, everybody leaves with a smile on their face, rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. Okay, we all say, well, that's old and staid and this and that, but it works. And that element is absolutely creeping into the productions that we're seeing, where the stories are moving closer to fulfilling general audience expectations and following fairly simplistic models. When we come back to judging and looking at the art and what we're pushing, it's a completely opposite direction, or very often it's uncomfortable, or it is untypical, or it's unpredictable and unprofitable, because how we're going to run the show can never you mentioned Chaos and Order, a film that I really love, really nicely integrating the dome, the color, mathematics, introduction of a new topic into the dome theater, and I've yet to find a way to run it in Denver. You mentioned just the differences between a Hamburg audience and an audience in Kiel, or perhaps here in Jena. Expand that internationally to our Japanese friends, Australia, around and around. I guarantee you that, I don't need to guarantee, I've seen it myself. The Japanese festivals are very, very localized. They have a real specific style to those films. They feel they must deliver that to the crowds, and because of precedent, they'll continue to do that. It isn't a critique, it's just recognizing that that is an excellence in their group. So when we look at an international festival, how do you begin to compare something with a soft-spoken email Japanese voice about the wonder of the sky and whispering to you, with something else that comes in with a big rocket voice man, launching off here and there? How do you compare that? And it really comes down to the point again about the heart. Is there something that drew me into it? Did I care where either of them were going? Did they take me somewhere or not?
I think something that you said just reminded me, the very first time we came to Jena, we had no idea what to expect. We've been seeing a few films in the United States, and we did not come here specifically to say, oh, we want to represent these shows. We came to say, let's see what people are doing. And I was aware that the student works were a very big part of this festival. And so every year we have come, and yes, we actually have found a show every time that we want to represent, and then we contact the producer, like Eduard or some of the others, and say, can we represent you? What I always wish I could do is bring back the student works with me to the United States and show them off. Even though they're probably not always marketable, per se, where you were going to sell the show, they are thought-provoking, and I always say to myself, I wish more people from the U.S. would come to this festival. So this year at IMERSA in Denver, we did bring some of those student works, a few of them, to show off in sort of an experimental form to show people what's going on. That's not to say in the U.S. that we are against it, but every institution has its rules about what it will show. Eduard has his, you have yours. As a distributor, I almost have to be aware of those rules. If I want Dan to run a show that I've created, I know that it has to work with his institution or yours. Excuse me. So that becomes not a judgment point for me, per se. I look at a show when I come here, but I still am wearing my producer hat when I look at shows. Because as a producer, that's sort of the first way I look at shows. And if it tells the story, if it strikes a memory chord in you, in literature, in media criticism, there is a whole school of thought about what makes a media piece memorable. And this is true whether it's a film or a political ad or a cartoon, what makes it memorable, what makes it stick in the audience member's head. And as a writer and producer, I often don't know what is going to stick in someone's head. I can only figure that out when I'm the audience member. So in a sense, when I'm producing, I have to become my own audience member. And it is extremely difficult. How I imagine it is my father is looking over my shoulder and I'm explaining something to him, or my mother or someone like that. I know that doesn't help explain how I pick a show, but a show, if I'm sitting in the audience and as Dream to Fly did last year brought me to tears, I said, that's the show I have to have. We also distribute Chaos and Order, and my first reaction to that was, where was this show when I was flunking calculus? Because it was such a good show, I could have used it. And any of your shows and some of the others that we take, they strike a heart chord in me. They say to me, I remember them months afterwards. I was just talking to Hans Wagner. Sorry, I missed your name up. He produced a show about the golden superheroes, and I think that was the first year I was in Jena. 4 years later, I'm still talking about it. It was memorable, it did something good. And it worked the dome, it fit the dome, and I think that would do the same thing for any audience member.
I think if you look to what Jena means to us as a community, this way of giving students the possibility to show their shows is a very, very important thing. And if I look to students' work, there is sometimes such a new way of thinking that I have the impressions you just mentioned. There are some shows from the first Jena festival here that I remember, and in Kiel I have them on my system. I always show these first experiences. On the other side, it was very difficult to bring these experimental things to our audience. I tried several ways in bringing people to student shows, and it doesn't work in Kiel, or not as good as I would like that it should work. And I think this is a difficulty for my opinion. These young minds with their creativity is the future for Fulldome. And we have to bring them the possibility that they can catch their audience, that they can get awards. I think it's very important for your thinking in a career, and you have to think as a career as a student. But it's also important that you see people being amazed after they have seen your production, that people applaud when they have seen your production. And I think one challenge is for us as the Planetarium community to give students the possibility to show their experiences to audiences not only in Jena or maybe in Kiel or in Wolfsburg or any other place in the world, but if possible at very many Fulldome places in the world.
So I'll take that segue and mention, Carolyn mentioned IMERSA. How many of you are familiar with IMERSA? I'll need to briefly describe that. We set it up, thank you, as one of the founding directors, and it's an acronym for Immersive Media, Entertainment, Research, Science, and Arts, a very broad-reaching independent group. But the goal was exactly what you described, to see what we can do to share and communicate and build bridges internationally. And one of the highlights of the festival this spring was to go back through and collect some of those favorite short films and bits and pieces. And as you mentioned, two of the films that I come back to over and over again. There's one called Petty Tyrant. How many of you might remember that? With a little flea. One of the best deliveries in the Dome ever. It really stands out. The other one is called Above, Von Meyer. I don't know if he's in here or not. So again, it drew you into it and really makes use of moving in the Dome. So this is very important. Number one, that we have the environment and opportunity to allow the students to dream and experiment in coaching. I think the local community here in Germany is well ahead of the curve internationally on nurturing that talent. But the second piece, like both of you mentioned, is to evangelize that, to get those pieces out to inspire more, not only to reflect the good work that was here, but to see that others can take that art further. I want to return briefly to the judging aspects of what we're trying to accomplish here, and I had some notes on a challenge we had Tuesday, faced with some 60-some clips we're going to look at. So you're given a sheet and you rate 1 to 10 and you have categories, and we're making shorthand notes, but you see the first film and you go, what am I comparing this with? Am I comparing with everything I've ever seen, with last year's, with student work, or what's going to come that I haven't seen yet? So this is a real quandary in terms of making good notes about what's unique about that piece. In fairness, we want to be comparing it with the other competition that's going to come up, and be flexible enough to maybe readjust and note that you made 16 or 15 or 20 films into the sequence to try to be fair about it. Folks, good luck. You know, it's really, really, really subjective, and one of the bigger challenges. The second thing, too, we're comparing it with media outside of Fulldome. So we're looking at Hollywood challenges or what other folks are doing. Or we're comparing it with previous winners. So there are precedents that are set to say, Dome Fest, David Binding's good work, that started much of this set. A different criterion, those judges are asked generally to look for things that don't have precedent, or things that have moved the art forward. And the winners sometimes may not be the best technical delivery or some of the others, but somebody's trying something completely different, and the judges will stand up and argue for that being important because it was a different technique. I wonder some of these stories, and I let my imagination run and say, what would I do with this topic and take it in another direction? And I'm very often disappointed, and I want to sit down with that producer and say, you know, it was a really good idea and it was delivered here, but you could have taken it here or taken it there, and I would have been much more amazed. And that's part of my teaching and evangelizing, to keep encouraging us to take it there. And clearly the fact that we're invited, there's a chance people want to hear our opinions about how we can do that. And then what I expect, here's another tricky one. Student work, okay, an automatic qualifier that says, did they get it done at all? Was it turned in a format with or without the sound files? We laugh about this stuff, but for the students, if you can't get the thing done on time and review it and deliver it in a professional way, you're not helping anybody out. So some of those things are setting, frankly, a relatively low expectation to say it was done, it did have sound, and the sound was synchronized with what was happening. Okay, that's another step. And there was good color and good value. These are very elemental things, but there was that I made notes on the other day when we went through and looked at some of these pieces, and it was important. And the last is one I obsess about a lot. Was it an experience, or was it looking at something in the distance? You know, was I taken somewhere? When I moved? Did they use the dome? Or was this something that could work on a flat screen within a frame? Just some steps and criteria I try to look at.
Yeah, I don't envy you the judging aspect that you had this week. The first year that I did it, we only had 7 professional pieces to judge, and that was a very different level of expectation. Although in the early days of Fulldome, you did have the same expectation. Did the sound match? Did the color look good? We were all learning, and I think to some sense our art is maturing just a little bit. We may not be toddlers anymore. We may not be 2-year-olds. We are now maybe 10-year-olds or teenagers coming into to making Fulldome what it is. Last year, I had the experience of being one of the preliminary judges for the Jackson Hole Wildlife Festival, which is a big science and wildlife festival in the United States, and it took entries from around the world. We had 600 videos. I think there were 40 Fulldomes. Excuse me. And I wasn't allowed to judge Fulldome because I had an entry in that category. So I was given science and medicine. And they gave me 35 films to watch, but I had 30 days, not 30, or whatever you had. And they were very, very organized. They had an ingestion system online where they would bring the films in, we could watch them in HD on our computers from our phones, in our pajamas or whatever. And we had a listing sheet, and you had 50 possible points that you could give to a film. Well, these are the cream of the crop producers. This is National Geographic, David Attenborough, BBC, NHK, you name it. These are the people who have been producing, and every one of them could get a 50 right off the bat. And so then you're down to judging, well, maybe I didn't like the narrator, or the music was a little too loud, or something like that. That was a little different experience, but it gave me a great learning experience in terms of all the different ways that people tell similar stories. Many of them were wildlife, many of them were the African migration, or whales migrating, or birds migrating, but they all told a unique story. And I think the takeaway that I took in that, in the planetarium world, largely we are still doing astronomy in space. That's not completely true, but that's, or science related. So we are seeing a group of filmmakers come up trying to tell those same stories in new ways. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what this next crop of filmmakers does. Also, when I come to Jena, sometimes I'm looking for people to hire. I need an animator, or I need someone to help me with a specific issue. And I know that now in Germany and other parts of the world, there are people being trained in Fulldome, and they are coming here. The Ringling College of Art and Design in the United States always sends student works here. And it's a really great way to see what people are being trained to do. So that's a little bit separate from judging, but it's just another reason that I come to Jena.
As a planetarium director, I have a problem that I don't know how many good shows are available. Sometimes I get a DVD, or I get a web presentation with a lot of hopefully amazing shows, but I have my daily work to do. And it's very difficult to show 50 Fulldome experiences to decide, is this possibly done in Kiel? And so the normal way, and I think it's an old way of thinking, is to do things for yourself. This is not possible, it's too expensive, so you try to get partners to do things. And of course, these are always the same themes. But it is done with colleagues in planetariums who have the same kind of thinking. For example, we have now 10 planetariums in Germany who work together to produce a show. It's the normal story, you can think, from the Big Bang up to today. But it is done in a way we will like, for we were partners in doing the script, and going together was necessary to find a budget for the show, but it showed how difficult it is to produce. It was not the difficulty to bring the thoughts of the 10 planetarium directors together. This was done quite quick. But it was very difficult to arrange the formal, the legal barriers that had to be solved. And it did made, from my feeling, 50% of the work that had to be done. Maybe it had only be 30%. But it was amazing how many difficulties had to be solved to reach the goal to work together.
Actually, I had that experience with Eduard because we distributed 2 of your shows, and you and I and Mark worked together very well, but your university had many rules that we had to follow. And in addition, I think I was working with you on the translating, which is another thing. When I distribute shows, I have to worry about translations and that sort of thing. But you were great. Your university was a little slow. Yeah.
Administration in the university.
So, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom and your opinions and your dedication with us. 2 points that I just that came to my heart as I was listening to you were kind of 2 paradoxical observations. The one is, we have to become professional in being unprecedented. That's difficult because professionalism means you have to develop reliable routines. But since we're in a medium that the strength of which is unprecedented opportunities, we have to keep this open mind. And so I think this applies to producing, to judging, to distributing. And we can be happy that we come together from time to time with people that have this dedication to unprecedented professionalism in being unprecedented and creative in the domain. The other one is, Eduard rightly mentioned, budget is always crucial. And probably this sounds like a very bad pun, but working with many students, we don't have any budget constraints because we don't have any budgets. And sometimes this absence of a budget helps this mad creativity to create something out of nothing, which then helps to develop kind of a meta skill in finding a workable, doable technical solution for an unsolvable technical problem or creative problem. And so I very much really hope that all the student talents, and it's not just students, it's just independent, dedicated individuals who find ways in and out of a labyrinth of challenges, come up with ideas which they share, which then eventually become professional tools for others to grow and become successful and earn a living for this. So I thank you very much, and I'm also free to make a little secret public announcement, because as I was driving with Dan to Jena, we were discussing, okay, well, we're always looking ahead with the curve, what can we learn from you now, but what can we learn from you in the future? And we decided that next year, when the Jena Festival happens again in May 2015, we will have a 2-hour session at this time of the festival, organized and curated by IMERSA, that focuses totally on the business aspect of Fulldome. Just the business. What's the business opportunity for planetariums for traveling roadshow, inflatable domes, what's the job opportunities for students, for independents, what's all this about? And so we're very grateful that Dan agreed to host, to curate this workshop session. So, you know, the discussion that you opened, this trialogue, will find a continuation next year in the IMERSA-sponsored Business of Fulldomia debate. Thank you very much, the three of you. Yeah, I think you did it.